I encourage people to treat it like a real project and not just like a piece of content that you tweet about once and then next week here's a new thing. Like one piece of content that you spent a lot of time, you can create like 5 mini pieces of content about that piece.
Welcome back to On the Horizon. This is MelRose Michaels. I am your host, and I'm here to share what's worked for me in building my adult creator business to try to make building yours just a little bit easier. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome, everyone. I'm stoked that you are all here for us to explore holiday content, how to monetize it well with expert Bella Vendetta. Bella Vendetta is an award-winning veteran of the adult industry with over 2 decades as a performer, producer, director, and writer. With experience inside indie and mainstream porn, feature dancing, stripping, managing clubs, working as a traditionally trained professional dominatrix, sex educator, and guest speaker, Bella brings a unique, well-rounded perspective to her insights with this industry. Now spending the bulk of her time running TreasureCams.com, a virtual webcam studio, representing models across a variety of live streaming and fan platforms. Bella helps Treasure Cam models be at the top of their game, get first page placements, industry awards, and most importantly, take home paychecks that actually pay the bills. Bella preaches about downtime and work-life balance to help performers in studios lead healthy and fulfilling lives and careers. And she currently lives in a mountainside farm with her wife in a menagerie of rescued animals. Her legacy website featuring all of her content can be found at vendettaverse.com. Bella, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I'm super excited about this.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to get to talk about this. It's an undervalued aspect of the industry.
Absolutely. And it's a really timely, I think, because all of the creators listening, we're in Q4, holidays are sneaking up very quickly. So like this topic, I think is going to provide a lot of value for everyone listening in.
I hope so.
So can you give us a little bit of background before we jump into things? So like, obviously I read the bio and everyone listening in has a little bit of an idea, but give me more of your story. Like how did you end up here, Bella?
A question I ask myself every day. How did I end up here in this mountainside farm? Meager, humble beginnings, as my sex work journey was kind of probably a little backwards for the way some people do it, but I started as a professional dominatrix and did a training in a formal household, a BDSM chateau. And in those days, you advertised pro dom in like print magazines, and so I found myself doing photo shoots for that, and found that I loved doing photo shoots. I wanted to do more of that. Having things like personal websites wasn't really a thing back then as so much. And we didn't have all these fan site platforms that we do now. So it was a really different world. So I ended up creating my own website, which in those days was bellavendetta.com. And I launched that in 2003. And from then, it just, my career has gone some really interesting places. I got to do some mainstream porn, and from those experiences in like mainstream, I got to do some feature dancing gigs, and from doing feature dancing gigs, found I really loved dancing and became a house dancer. So that's why I say I sort of did it like maybe a little backwards than some people do. I think some people would start as a house dancer and work their way up to feature dancing. I did it the opposite way, and continued running my website. And I've just kind of explored many avenues that this life and this career has to offer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You said that you've been in the industry over 2 decades. I can't imagine all of the things you've seen change over that time. Because I've been here a decade, and I feel like I've watched it come full circle almost twice maybe in
Yeah.
that time. How have you kind of gauged in like what things stand out to you personally about the industry over that time period for you?
I mean, I kind of hope it comes full circle again. And my dream is that we go back to like physical media, and I can like go sell magazines, like limited edition magazines out of the trunk of my car at shows or something like
That would be
that.
amazing.
Really. But it's how do I gauge? I mean, I feel like it's just in industry, like any business industry, you really have to, it's a fast-paced industry. You have to stay on top of the game. It's a technology-based industry. As much as
Hmm.
we might not think of ourselves that way in the adult industry, we are in the tech industry, and we're actually a huge part of it. We're also, in the indie tech and banking industry. All of these things intersect. So there's a lot of moving parts, and I try to really like honor that all of those things are different and take their own level of expertise and time to research and stay up upon. And I try to do that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that paying attention to the climate of stuff, especially doing the market research, like really having your pulse on like what's trending and what's coming out of season or into season, just
Hmm.
because there's these like ebbs and flows to any business or any industry really. And
Hmm.
so as soon as you take your pulse off of that, it can be really hard to stay current and present and stay in a place where you're capitalizing on things, I would say.
Yeah.
I want to get into this because I know everyone's tuning in for this, holiday themed content ideas and how we can plan for the season coming up. So I want to get back to the topics of like work, career, business, work life balance because those are so important too. But for the sake of people who are tuning in, and I don't want to clickbait anyone, let's move straight into holidays because I want to make the most out of this for them.
It's all
So
connected, I promise. It's all
yes,
connected.
absolutely, absolutely. So when we're talking about holiday content, when do you start planning holiday content, and what month is that? Why do you begin it then? Like, can you walk us through kind of that process?
So, and I don't advocate for anyone to do everything exactly the way I do it, but I've been doing it for a long time, and I have found what works for me and what gives me the best results. I really love data, so I've got a lot of data to back up the things that I do. And so for me, like for instance, this year's Christmas holiday content for me, I shot last year. I am already up. I know when it's
Oh,
going up, it's
wow.
already queued and it's ready to go. I'm going to shoot some more again to release this year and to keep in the vault for next year and maybe to keep in my back pocket for in case whatever happens, like I get sick or need to take some time off. So I start telling folks in my studio, in the Treasure Cam studio, around August to start thinking about what you might want to do for Halloween, for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, for New Year's. Think about it now. Do you want to run a sale? Do you have a shtick? Do you, look at the days of the week these things fall on? Figure out what paydays are for people. If you're going to be live streaming, what the schedule is going to be. Is there going to be a theme? Is that theme going to be with decoration or with costume or with story or a combination of all three? Because there's a lot of ways to do holiday content. So instead of throwing something together at the last minute and getting stuck in this hamster wheel of like stressful content creation, I encourage folks to start thinking about it way early in summer season.
If you're enjoying this podcast episode so far, please take one moment to share it with another one of your adult content creator friends because you know what the rule is here. We do not gatekeep, and we want to make as many adult creators' businesses as easy as possible. And you sharing this episode with them might do exactly that. Thanks so much in advance.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, I'm pretty far out with content, but I've never been a year ahead like that. So, like, that is something I aspire to be. And also, just because, like, I'm only as young as I'll be once, right? So, like, to
Right.
have really great content that's like this age of me, but be publishing 3 years from now, that makes me very excited. When you're considering, like, your fan base in terms of holiday content, because something I know I struggle with personally is like I love evergreen content because of the fact that I can publish it year round. I don't feel pigeonholed by it. I don't feel like, if I send this out to some fan in the middle of the year, it's going to be weird because it is themed and it is holiday-esque. What
Mhm.
are your thoughts on that? Like, do you have a percentage of like content you cater to holiday or themes versus your year-round stuff? Like, is there a balance to be, I guess, aimed for something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I like the term evergreen content and I like to have as much of that as possible, right? But the holidays I look at as like this they seem to sneak up on everyone. No one ever knows how quickly they're going to come. And I mean that with sex workers and with vanilla folks in their regular life and job, people with families. The holidays sneak up on you. They become this like stressful time, but there's a lot of money going around in the holidays, and I don't like to see people sleep on it. People are spending money freely, and when they're stressed out, they're spending money even more. And when they're spending money on other people, they're more apt to spend money on themselves, doing a special thing like buying a piece of content or buying something off your wish list or getting a special cam show or whatever the thing is. So, if I'm in the sex industry, the holidays are my busy time. I have to not sleep on that. And I have to not wait till the very last minute to be shuffling around. I got to be prepared for that, you know? So
Yeah.
I think fans across the board are excited about what you're excited about. And if you say you're excited about the holiday content, they're going to be excited about it too. That's just the recipe for getting them excited. If you're excited, then they will be too. So you can tell them how excited you are about it. This year I'm going to do this, or it's a great time to be pushing your wish list to folks. They're feeling generous, and do it early. Do it in August. This year for Christmas, I want this red dress so I can shoot this set with it. I'm really looking forward to it. And people will want to be a part of it and see the finished result and get excited for that. So
Yeah.
I think that, the excitement that's on you, not the fans. Now, I will say, I feel like we'll get to this later in the convo too, but I will say that as far as like evergreen versus holiday goes, I find myself now selling holiday content all year round, all the time. Because if you've got a fan and they like you and the stuff you create and they go through your catalog and they see all this Halloween content, they're like, oh, well, she really likes Halloween content. I'm going to buy it to see what it's about. They're going to get into it because you are putting it out there for them. You're putting it on the radar.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. I think that it's easy, at least for me personally speaking, to like get hung up on like the way you think it's supposed to be. Like I think holiday content should only be shared during the holidays. Like I think
Hmm.
Halloween content should only be in October. But
Hmm.
like who says who? Like people who are into cosplay are into cosplay year round, right?
Hmm.
So I guess there's room to play there, probably more so than I even imagined. I liked what you spoke about a minute ago of how you kind of engage your fans in this process. Because like you're saying, like if you're excited about it, you get them excited about it, and then they might participate in like buying something off the wish list to
Hmm.
contribute to the set or to be a part of it. Are
Hmm.
there other ways that you like creatively engage fans into this process and get them invested?
I feel like I was going to say this too, but I feel like at this point, what's really cool is that I've got so much holiday content now that one of my strategies for, reusing it and putting it out there in people's minds is to like queue up tweets. I mean, I've got the whole month of October. Remember this one? Hey, and then do you remember when I was a witch this time? And do you remember when I dressed up as a fox? And do you remember 2023? This was a fan favorite set. And I find now that my fans do the marketing for me. They'll be like, and remember this one when you did this one in the graveyard? We loved that one. They'll be commenting on it and sharing it. And it's like they the engagement's created because, they remember that this is a thing I like to do and that I'm gonna keep doing. They're gonna look forward to it next year. They're gonna wonder what I'm gonna do for Christmas, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you do you think there's like a recipe, so to speak, for standing out? Because I like even to what your point is right now, like what you're describing, like everyone's circulating these holiday, Halloween pictures and there's a lot of that going right around right now. But in terms of that standing out or terms of just in general, like within your own fan site standing out, like what can make creators stand out amongst the crowd during these holiday seasons?
I think a few things. I think being prepared and professional makes you stand out because people can tell when you have gone to the dollar store and thrown up a banner and put on a black dress and shot a set in front of it and not, I'm not saying that there's no value in things like that, but that's a different ball game than someone who has like maybe taken notes on a set they want to do, ordered a special outfit, set up a whole thing, and then carefully edited the photos that they want to release later. That's a different ball game.
Yeah.
So I think being prepared and being professional with it is really important, and to be authentic with it because if you don't like Halloween and it's not your thing, don't force yourself to make all this Halloween content thinking you're going to miss out all on all this money. If it's not your thing, it's not your thing. I also, I'll take this time to say that the holidays I'm mentioning are the ones that are coming up for me, and I think that this works for all holidays, and I've seen it like connect people with their fan base to let them know what it is important to you and what you're celebrating. Like even if it's St. Patrick's Day, even if it's whatever holiday, like even I've seen creators of different religions share info about their customs with whatever traditions they've got going on, and it deepens the fans' understanding of you and where you're coming from. It makes the content that much more special. So be authentic to what resonates with you as a person and to what's selling for you for content. Like if you sell a ton of JOIs and that's your thing, do a Halloween JOI, or spiderweb stretch pants JOI, or JOI under the Christmas tree. Like it doesn't have to be completely off brand for you. Just work it into what you're already doing.
Yeah. It sounds like you're just talking about more so like the themes or the concepts, and then just incorporating it into the stuff that you are already making that's already within your boundaries, within your kind of scope as a creator. Have you found something that works particularly well with your own audience that maybe was unexpected for the holiday season?
So I knew you were gonna ask that question. I thought about, like, I've been doing this for a long time. What are the fan favorites? What are the things? What really was working? And I realized I was today years old when I realized that I actually the whole me creating all this holiday content has worked in these sort of like eras. Like I can specifically identify an era where I would do like stretch pants content, like Christmas stretch pants, Halloween stretch pants, like
Oh,
summer
nice.
stretch pants, whatever the thing was. For a while, it was Santa Bella for Christmas, and I would get like different Santa outfits. That started, I think, at the strip club when I would dress up in Santa outfits and like ask people if they wanted to sit on my lap and tell me what they wanted for Christmas. And then that went over to Cam and to the fan sites and to creating content. And so that was a thing for a while. And then the last few years, I've been lucky enough to have this professional studio space. And I think it was more about like building the sets, like whatever cool set I could build to go with whatever holiday and the outfit that went along with it. It wasn't so much more about the act anymore than it was about the outfit. And that's okay. That's been fun. I think I'm going to move into a different era now that the studio's not here and I have all this like land and this farm. I think it's gonna be like holidays on the farm. What else can I do? I got to work with what I got.
Absolutely. There's two things you're speaking to right now that I think stand out to me. One, when you're saying like holidays on the farm, this is because I'm going through my own like social media niching down in like doubling down on a safe for work brand to drive traffic personally, like on in my own business. So like really identifying niches that are actually aligned with you, because I have so many interests and so many hobbies, but they're not things that happen in my everyday life. Versus
Hmm.
like I relate to you so much because I have a farm too. I have 80 acres. I live in the middle of
Hmm.
nowhere. So
Hmm.
like for me, really leaning into like this country girl thing, because that's really my life. Like that, it's not that I'm a
Yeah.
country girl necessarily, but that is my actual life now. So like really leaning into farmy content, or the landscape, the scenery where I am, like it makes sense to like align with those niches because that is my day to day. And
A hundred
so
percent.
I think navigating that, and even with the holiday content, is like really aligning it with your niche and what is disposable at your fingertips, because like
Mhm.
it's hard, especially for creators who maybe aren't as affluent or aren't as privileged positionally, to like make a beautiful set or have a really
Mhm.
expensive costume and all of those things, but you can still align holidays with what is like naturally in your surroundings and what your actual ecosystem looks like. So I love that you brought that up.
Yes, absolutely. Like, I think I felt, not to get off topic, but to talk about the farm thing for a second, I think I
Yeah, of
felt a
course.
little weird at first for probably several reasons. One of them being that like most people can't relate to that and don't own all this acreage in a farm, and that's
Hmm.
hard to relate to. And I found it kind of, maybe I felt a little polarizing. And part of it was like I also felt like this was a really personal part of my life. I wasn't sure I wanted to share or how much, but
Yeah.
100% what you were saying, just like that. I mean, this is my life now, day to day, like I look hot while I stack wood. I'm going to take pictures of that.
Yeah.
Y'all are going to see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. And the other part of what you were saying, which I think is so interesting, is because of your experience, like you've done this in-person dom stuff, you've done dancing, you've done, digital creation, you've done cams, you have the studio, like you've had such a cool testing ground of concepts and ideas over a long time horizon, right? So like you've been able to test ideas in terms of how you sell something in person, if,
Yeah.
as a dance, or in person as a dominatrix, or on cams, or in content. Like you've almost had this, I guess, evolution between the different kinds of sex work you do to have this testing ground for ideas and really hone in on what works. And I think that's super unique to you, because I don't know that majority of creators, at least based on the data company and the data we have, majority of creators aren't super well rounded in a lot of verticals. Majority of
Yeah.
them are doing like a handful, like maybe
Yeah.
three different kinds of like lanes. So I think you have a unique perspective on things because you've had, all of these years and all of these different lanes to kind of hone in and figure out your offer and figure out how to sell it and figure out what works and what doesn't. It's very unique to you.
Yeah. It's been a lot. I mean, it's changed a lot. And so yeah, I always tell people like, what if I'm ever telling you something? Don't think I'm just like pulling it out of my ass and making it up as I go along. I'm like, I'm telling you, if I think I know something, I'm telling you with many years of experience and tried and true methods. That's what I'm telling you. And with the studio, I now get the joy of seeing the actual data and numbers for other people who are taking what I'm saying into consideration and putting it into action. And now I can say like 100%, yep, if you do this, this will be the results. And it feels really good to come to a place in my career to feel just really confident about that.
Can I ask, like, because I'm a data girly too, like, what are one of the clear cut and dry things that you've seen proven in data with just like working on the Cam's studio and just across the board in your own experience that you're like, this works every time. Everyone should do this, or
I
most people
mean,
should do this.
regardless of the platform or what you're doing across the board, the number one piece of advice is consistency. And people hate to hear it.
Yeah.
It's really easy to say, it's very hard to put in action. And I recognize that. But the people who are consistent and treat this like a job are the people who succeed.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Luckily for us, that's most of our audience here at SWCEO. So I'm glad everyone's here listening in because they're here
Yeah.
for the business aspect of it, which is like what I think makes, our community so fucking cool. Now, because you're talking about consistency, this brings me to a topic that I feel like creators don't maybe understand how to do it or aren't confident in doing it, and that's like reusing content.
Hmm.
I am a beast at reusing content. Like I will run reruns because I know 90 days from now the fans on my page are probably 90% different people entirely.
Yes.
You're keeping
Yeah.
your whales and your loyalists, right? But there's churn and everyone turns over and we are a luxury item or
Hmm.
commodity. So for me, I reuse content right now on a 90-day run cycle because I know the lifetime value of my average fan is around 90 days or less. So
Hmm.
when someone joins my page 90 days from now, they'll still have seen new content every single day. And then they'll likely unsub and go into my expireds. But whoever new has joined is seeing all new stuff again for the first time, too. So,
Hmm.
how do you approach reusing content? Because I feel like this is a taboo topic almost in our industry. And there's so much pressure to create constantly new stuff, inspired stuff. And it's so overwhelming.
It is. I call it the hamster wheel, the content creator hamster wheel, where you're constantly, always 100%, always stressed and rushed about having to shoot something, having to edit something, having to upload something. Like always, you're always doing one of the things. And so I encourage people to get off the hamster wheel, it's the industry has changed so much because I can remember a time where you would put out one good video a month, and it was a lot,
Yes.
and it was a
Yes.
big production, and people really appreciated it. And then it went to, and I remember that I used to release on the original bellavendetta.com once a week, and that was a lot. People considered it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I release twice a week now on Vendettaverse, and one is a photo set, and one is usually like I call it a VIP blog, which is usually like me talking maybe in depth about something around the holidays. Friends, it'll be some recipes that I'm sharing for the holidays. It'll be some tradition stuff. It'll be some stuff about the farm. So, my personal recipe to not get too inundated with that stuff when I am shooting holiday stuff now, here's what I do. Here's what I tell everyone to do. I have never told anyone outside of treasure cams this. We talk about this in treasure cams a few times a year. If I'm shooting, in fact, today is a great example because I just shot something today. I felt inspired by the topic and I
Oh, I
shot
love
something,
that.
right? So the makeup is on, the outfit's already been shot in. I've got the set or the location all set and lit nicely. I shot something. I'm going to change outfits and I'm going to go back and shoot in the exact same location with the exact same makeup. And now I have two things that I shot in one day. I'm going to release one this year and I'm going to hold back one for next year. So next year, come October, I already have something ready to go. I do not have to stress about rushing and getting on the hamster wheel to make sure I've got my Halloween content. It is created. I can also make something else. So now I've got two pieces of holiday content, of Halloween content. And next year, I'm going to do the exact same thing and create two and keep one in the vault. Sometimes I create three, depending on how I'm feeling or whatever's going on. how it goes. So
Hmm.
that is what I recommend everyone do with every holiday that's important to you. Don't worry about, no one's going to be keeping notes and write you a mean letter about how you used that same set last year. Okay,
Yeah.
they don't care. They've forgotten. And as far as reusing stuff that you already have, right? So when next year comes around, you can now be like, and remember last year when I shot this really cute thing? People will appreciate it. Those people haven't seen it. You have all new fans in a year. So what you were saying about like the 90-day cycle, that's awesome. But you can go a whole year with this stuff. People really have forgotten. And then if they didn't forget, they're going to talk about, oh yeah, I remember this one. This one was a good one, you know?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
have you thought about next year doing this? Sometimes they'll give you ideas, you know, because they're excited about it, and then you know exactly what they want to see.
Absolutely. And two, like this is I run my page super weird and I'm about to switch it back. So take this advice for whoever's listening with a grain of salt. Because I typically right now I'm running my page like a premium Snapchat. I drop a new video every day, but I have a high subscription price. And it was a test that I ran for the last year. And I'm about to switch back to more traditional business model just because for the sake of content, I would rather stretch it more thin and have a lower sub price. But the point of this being is that with your fans, another way to double earn on the same content is something that I've done that I found fans actually quite enjoy the fact that I offer this, and it's a convenience thing. Is that if I have a piece of content on my feed that they can freely watch and see for the subscription price, that content actually expires off my feed in 30 days. So
Mm.
they're subbed, and for their sub price, they have access to whatever's on my feed for 30 days. But what I put in my caption is like, if you like this video and you want to have it in your purchase collection, which is, basically every PPV they unlock goes to their purchase so they can rewatch it in their spare time. Like if you want to have this video in your purchase collection, let me know and I'll send it to you for the lowest possible unlock price, which is $3 on OnlyFans. So I have fans that pay the sub price to see the content and then will ask me to send it to them locked for $3 to pay for it again, just so they
Mhm.
have it in their, purchased collection. So you can also reuse content in that way, which is, I think, contrary to how people think that it can be done. But fans, they like the convenience of not having to go back and look for something or not trying to get it to load from a year ago. Like that convenience is something you
Yes.
can do too.
100%. And if you're like amassing holiday content by year 2, 3, you've got a nice vault there. You can sell the whole thing to people now. You can, if you
Yeah,
like my holiday content, if you like the Halloween content, check out the Christmas, etc., etc. And I'll also
absolutely.
say there's always new fan platforms and clip platforms every year. So if you've released it and had success on Clips for Sale, next year you release it on Loyal Fans. The year after that, you release it on AP Clips. By the time you've the third year, you look like you have so much Halloween content. You've got something to go every single week. You're way ahead of the curve.
Yeah. Can I ask what platforms do you like really focus on? Like what are your core home-based platforms?
So in treasure cams, and it all again comes from like hard data of knowing what the traffic is like and where we make our money. Our highest earning models, which are over 100K a year, are earning that on Streamate. And the other platforms that we represent models on include AP Clips, Loyal Fans. We do OnlyFans, not out of love, out of necessity,
Yeah, don't we all?
more than anything. And we've started on Substack with some blogs as well.
Interesting. Okay. So, and when you're like, because there's this pull, right? Like, there's always this duality of like, do I distribute far and wide because that takes time and effort, especially for
Mhm.
creators that don't have a team, don't have an assistant to help with that kind of stuff, or do I call a place home, really double down with the reality that I have my eggs in this one basket? And I'm curious what your take on something like that is, because also I mean, I'll let you do your take and then I'll add my 2 cents, I guess. I don't want to skew your vision.
I mean, I think to answer that, I think it's on an individual basis. It really depends for me when someone signs up with the studio. It's not like a one size fits all, do this and you will have success. It's more like, let's figure out what your goals are, how much money you want to make, how much time you want to put into this, and then what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and what do you want to do? So, if someone wants to live stream, we can, and that's the goal, we can build them a kick ass schedule. I can tell them when the traffic is, every aspect of the tech that they're going to need to understand what the best pricing point is. If they want to be a writer or they're looking to do more of an art focused thing or a side hustle, I can help them with that aspect of it. Oh, I didn't mention Chatterbait either. Chatterbait I consider as like kind of a backup and supplemental. but I do like it. I like the platform for, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses, and so it depends on the person which platforms they should personally focus on. But I do think someone should find a platform that resonates with them, or a style of content that resonates with them, and focus on that, because the killer and the burnout bringer is trying to do all the things and be on all the platforms. But that being said, I don't think it's wise to put all the eggs in one basket, and it's sex work, and it's online economy. So it's dangerous to have all the eggs in one basket, and it's good to have backups and different revenue streams and different fan bases on different platforms too.
100%. I agree. I think too, like the newer creators, like who are, baby creators, newer to the industry, just getting their footing. I think making sure you start with at least two platforms, like to your point, like having all your eggs in one basket is very dangerous. It's very risky. And
Hmm.
I think the new creators maybe don't realize how quickly the landscape can shift, and like
Yeah.
the fact that we really are always on sand, and not on solid ground. And
Yeah.
then as you kind of scale up your business and begin to grow and gain some resources and some tools under your belt, you can distribute a little bit wider with a little bit more consistency and like really scale the brand. But I do think that takes a team, and I think creators maybe try to go too wide too quickly without those resources, and then they get burnt out because it's so hard and it's so time consuming, and also it can reap very little reward at
Yeah.
the early stages, because like it's really difficult to build one successful home, and then if you're out there trying to build 8 or 9 of them, you can imagine how much more difficult that becomes. But I think at different levels and at different phases of your career, those things become more relevant to you and more important to focus on.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, as someone who's done all different types of sex work, like, right, it was at different points of my life. Each one of those things served its purpose, and I learned what I needed to. And when people ask me, like, I just actually had someone ask me, "Can you give me advice on becoming a pro dom?" And I was like, "I wouldn't. I would. My advice would be not to in this current climate." So, when I say that I focus on treasure cams and online live streaming and content creation, it's because that's where I believe and know that the money is.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is, I want to just make this like statement for everyone that listens in, and just even everyone that follows our stuff, your stuff, anyone crossing over, fans, audience, followers, creators. Like, I think there's so much good advice out there for our industry, not even just our own stuff, but like just generally, there's so much good advice. But the trouble comes with taking advice and trying to make it applicable to you when you're not at that like level or that phase of your career yet, and then you're like, well, why isn't this working? Well, it's just you're not there, you're not aligned with it yet. Like there's different things at different eras of your business, and some stuff won't make sense and some stuff will make sense when you get to that point, but like not everything is applicable all at once. And I think that's a mistake I made very early on, was like, oh, I saw this person doing this, well, that person has 1 million followers, of course they can do that, I can't do that.
Hmm.
Like I'm a
Hmm.
baby.
Hmm.
So, I want to ask you, how do you approach promotion of holiday content? And also, do you do that in advance by any measure, or do you have a like a strategy for it?
Well, I always like to set up my promo a month in advance. So at the last week of every month, I set up promo for the full month, the next coming month. Sometimes I do it for multiple months at a time. This year in September, I sat down and I did October, November, and December, if you can believe that.
Wow.
Um, so that's why I said, like, this whole space is very timely. It's been heavily on my mind this year, all this holiday stuff. You'll see if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see that I have so much of this holiday themed content. Like almost every single day, there's going to be a callback of, remember when I did this one, and this was one of my favorite ones. And when I say that, I actually usually mean it. I don't just say it. Like there's some, of course, that have been my favorite that I think are really, really good. And I want people to look at them, and that's why I'm bringing them back out there. Some of them didn't hit, and probably I won't include those. But um, you know, I am going to push it every single day. That, that's that's my mode of promotion, is to stick it in your face so much that you cannot ignore it. You're going to want to see the Halloween content because I'm going to tell you about it so much.
I love that. I think creators get like worried about over promoting, but the reality is, especially on Twitter specifically, like the feed on Twitter, like people are making tweets so often, we're getting fed stuff that we don't follow, and you can switch to your following tab, but we all follow so many people. Like the odds of missing promotion of something, even if someone's promoting it 10 times a day on Twitter, is like it's still hard to get something to come across a timeline. Like I don't
Yep.
think there is such a thing of over promoting on Twitter. Aside from the fact that if every tweet you put out has a link, you're probably doing some harm.
Yes. Yeah.
But beyond that, like I don't think it there can be too much, especially on Twitter. And Twitter, Reddit, probably similarly. Instagram, the story can get overwhelming if you're back to back to back. But I think those ones, like you're better off erring on the side of over promoting than under, because I think the under
Yes.
promotion hurts so much more.
100%, especially during the holidays because you have a limited time, right? It's not like you're going to suddenly in July start showing your Halloween stuff again. You have a limited time to do it. You've got like 1 month for each of the little seasons to do it and take advantage. So when you're doing anything where you're like creating a set, I think, or like putting time into what you're creating, putting a lot of care into it, I encourage people to treat it like a real project and not just like a piece of content that you tweet about once and then you put it out once and then next week here's a new thing. Like give us a teaser, give us a behind the scenes, give us a different perspective. Talk about making it before you make it. Talk about making it after you make it. You can one piece of content that you spent a lot of time, you can create like 5 mini pieces of content about that piece and people will know obviously by how much you're talking about it and talking about it instead of just being like buy but actually talking about it that you care about it and they'll want to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really valid point. I can't tell you how many times I've watched behind the scenes or just social media content of creators making their sets or creating their
Hmm.
costumes or, just planning their videos or like planning their props or like all of that
Hmm.
is so interesting, that process and that creativity and like the artistic side of it that I'm sure fans really connect with like at a deep level and also builds into like the core anticipation of purchasing the content.
Yes.
I want to move a little bit now because I know we got only like 15 minutes left. Bella, talk about, I guess, at first, what is work life balance to you? Like, what does that mean to you?
So I think that I struggled with what that meant for a really long time and it's really only in the last like 6 or 7 years that I have it under control. And so for me, it looks like having really strong boundaries about what are work days, how long they are, what I accomplish, when I will actually do work. I have office hours. They are 9 to 5. They are during weekdays. I do not work on the weekends anymore unless it's a live streaming an event or something, like that. But like sitting in front of the computer and doing work does not happen on the weekends anymore. I prioritize my family and my health before work. So when building a schedule, I figured out what my body needed, and then I figured out how much money I needed and how much time I needed to make that money, and I built the schedule around that.
I love that. Like, I think the misconception that people have with work life balance is that from one person to the next, that that's supposed to look the same and that
Mhm,
that's supposed to somehow be this like templated guide that we can all fit into seamlessly. And I think that's where that concept, like, I guess, kind of irritates me because I think it's so individual.
mhm.
When you were trying to sort out like what your schedule is going to look like how do you measure how much time you need for personal life versus how much time you need for work? Like, do you pick a goal for your career and then reverse engineer it, or like what is that process?
I won an art grant several years ago, and part of it was mentorship with this board of directors from this museum, and this one artist in particular who encouraged me to audit my time and write down every single fucking thing that I did and how long it took me and what I did throughout a day. And by doing that and doing it for a long time, I was able to see what I needed help with, like what was I wasting time on? What was I actually getting done? What actually needed to get done? I think I spent a long time learning because I was someone who is who has ADHD and spent a long time writing little notes on things and losing the notes and but they were in several different notebooks and like now it's so organized like now I have the type of ADHD where if it differs from my organization pattern, it is kind of like ruinous for me. But everything has its own notebook, everything has its own scheduled time. So I know what time I'm going to be answering emails. I can tell you when that's going to be. I know when that is this week. I know when that's going to be next week. I'm not going to deviate outside of that because that's what I need to keep my own sanity and to have a life. I mean, the thing about a to-do list is that it will be endless. There's always going to be something else to add to
Hmm.
it. So you have to pick and choose your battles and prioritize what you need to get done.
Absolutely. I'm going to butcher the quote, and I couldn't even tell you who said it, but it was something about you don't rise to the level of your like motivations, but you fall to the level of your systems. So when you're
Hmm.
mentioning like organizing and having your to-do list in one place and having this spot for kind of like your brain dumps and putting everything as it comes up and then sorting it to be effective with it later, I think that's so important. And also just the idea of like time blocking. It's funny because I just filmed a bunch of course videos that are going to come out in the next month or so for SWCEO, and one of them was about this idea of role switching, and it hit me in the face because I had to really navigate it for myself, like as a creator and putting on that hat, and then as a businesswoman and wearing that other hat, and having to go between the two is actually it takes a lot of like energy consumption and also like brain power to like flip between that like analytical strategic and then that inspired and creative side
Yes.
of it, and we all are operating with like this duality in this kind of work that has to require both sides. So and maybe this is just because it's top of mind for me and we're talking about work life balance, but do you find you have some maybe like some cue or some way to navigate switching between those roles?
It's funny. I actually, that's like, I feel like that's like the final boss. Like, it's so difficult to do that. And so, what I just said about having all these set and strict hours, I've been on that train for several years now. It's really saved me. But what I realized when we just moved and I shut down the studio and we moved to the farm and everything, I realized that I was prioritizing like treasure cams and Bella Vendetta stuff almost the same. And so my days would be split. And that was actually like harming me because I need to
Yeah.
be able to focus on treasure cams 100%. I cannot be distracted. But to do treasure cams, Bella Vendetta has to exist. So I have to be able to do that too. So now I've just separated the days. There's days that I do treasure cam stuff that I'm not going to be able to be in the mindset to, answer the sexy emails and to cue the content for the site and do that stuff. That's a different day. And as far as like, what you were saying about content and creating it and the brain space needed to do that, one of the things I also do that I feel really has saved me is scheduling time to think. I schedule myself specific time to brainstorm ideas instead of just like willy-nilly writing it down and stopping everything I'm doing and like, doing the
Hmm.
most to
Yeah.
make this piece of content. I will be like this, you know what? Wednesday's the day I'm sitting down and writing out what I want to do for Christmas this year. Wednesday's the day I'm doing, XYZ thing. Because content creation, you have to think about it, you have to acquire the things necessary, you have to shoot it, you have to edit it, you have to upload it, and then you have to promote it. It's
Yeah.
it's actually a seven-stage process to have one piece of content. So don't do all that work and then just like let it go with one tweet. You deserve
Yeah.
more than that. You all do. Everyone who's making content does. We're all working so hard. We deserve to treat it, every single piece of content, like it's a fucking movie.
Yeah. It sounds like what you're describing is this concept I heard about. Maybe I don't practice it as well as I'd like to, but it's this concept of like maker days and manager days. So like
Hmm.
manager days are those business days and you time block all your business stuff, your meetings, your just mundane, repeatable check off to-do list kinds of stuff. And
Hmm.
then you have the maker days where you get to be in that creative, inspired, or also like or taking a break so that you give yourself the breathing room to become inspired and to have that capacity to be able to play and have fun and explore and like do all of that, because all of those things they exist or they coexist together, the break and the
Yes.
breakthroughs when it comes to creativity. So I love that concept, and I should say I haven't achieved breaking all my days into separate like maker days or manager days, but that is something I'm trying to do. I'm actively reducing my meetings. Brand's listening in here knowing that we just went to biweekly meetings and we're about to see how well that's going to go for us. So stay tuned, everyone. Everyone's like, she just missed 3 vlogs. Really? She's going to take a break from meetings? Oh man. And then the final thing I think I want to touch on too for the work-life balance, because we did say like how that looks different for everyone, but also like I kind of feel like it's a pendulum at times. Like for me anyway, like I find so much joy in my work, and I do wrap up probably to a fault a lot of my identity in my work, but it's something that I find very rewarding, and I like that momentum of like the go 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 of it all. So
Hmm.
like I will notice myself like swing way more into work for a season and for like a pretty long period of time, and then
Hmm.
I'll find myself swing way out of it and just be completely dedicated to personal life for like a week or two if I'm traveling or whatever. And I think that that is also okay. Like I just think people have it in their head that it's supposed to look more structured and more balanced, and I don't know that it has to be anything. Like I think it can be whatever works for you,
Yeah,
genuinely.
it should be whatever works for you, as long as you're meeting your body's needs for real. I see so many sex workers work beyond what their physical body limitations are to the point of illness. Please don't
Yeah.
do it. You deserve days off. You all work so, so hard. You deserve to take days off. And for me, part of being neurodivergent means that I can't really just take a day off on the fly. I've got to plan it. I've got to feel like maybe I earned it, or or
Yeah.
maybe I've done all the work that there is to do so I can take the day off. Otherwise, I'm going to sit there laying on the couch trying to rest thinking of all the things I should be doing. So
Yeah.
I have to schedule the days off, and I've even got to schedule what I'm going to do with them. Is it going to be a day off of like lounging, or a day off of like yard work and farm work, or what? So I'm also still learning, like, you know, the amount of physical labor the farm takes is very, very great. And I have to now
Yeah.
schedule that into my day. That's another thing.
Absolutely. The the one other topic I would love to just touch on before we start to wrap is this idea of motivation, because this is another thing that comes up, inside CEO Society. Creators ask about this all the time. We discuss this topic at length about how to stay motivated and how to stay I think the core question gets asked is how do you stay consistent? But I think the
Hmm.
underlying question of that is how do you stay motivated? And because people will tie one to the other.
Hmm.
I want to get your take on motivation as a concept and as how you maintain it personally and how it's played out in your career.
I mean, from the day I started this job and in this industry, the motivation has always been money. That's the motivation. Money to pay the bills, to live, to thrive, to buy the farm, to have the animals, to have health insurance, to have all the things that I need. My motivation is the bills that I need to pay 100% of the time. And I don't love tying motivation in with consistency, because
Yeah.
consistency is actually still doing the job when the motivation is gone. The
Yeah.
motivation is going to come and go in ebbs and flows, but you are always going to have to do the work. And when you stop doing the work, the money stops coming, and it makes it even harder to jump back in and make money again. So consistency is super, super important. Uh, you know, it sucks. Like, I tell people, like, I hate to report that I feel better when I do my physical therapy exercise every day. But unfortunately for me, it makes my stupid knee feel better. I have to be consistent with it. Otherwise, I go 2 days and I'm in pain again. I do not want to do the physical therapy. Do you think I do not have motivation to do that every day? I don't want to, but I have to do it because I know that the results make me feel better. And I feel the same way about work. Even when I don't want to do it, I'm not particularly motivated that day. I'm also lucky enough to have been doing this long enough and to have such a vault of content that I don't have to push myself to be on that content creation hamster wheel. I have my vault I can always dip into when the motivation is so low. I can't, stand to do it. And that happens. That's normal. That's life. Ebbs and
Yeah.
flows.
Yeah. I love that you disassociate the idea of motivation with consistency, because I think like the motivation and discipline are almost opposite sides of the coin.
Mhm.
And also like I think people forget, or maybe we just get so out of habit or so out of practice, but like you can feel one way or feel an array of feelings and still behave and act out of accordance with your feelings. Like you can feel like you
Mhm.
don't want to do the thing, or you feel unenergized or unmotivated, and you can still do the thing. Like it's not that your feelings should dictate your actions. It's actually the skill of disconnecting those two that I think makes people really, really wildly successful. It's like
Yes.
realistically, the motivation I have for things comes from doing the thing. So
Mhm.
like I don't want to do it at all, but once I've done it, I'm motivated to do it again.
Yes.
Because, once you've got that like achievement sensation in your mind and body, but also the fact that you get the outcome, right? You made a sale or your income rose or you got a sub or whatever. So it's like the motivation, at least in my like lens or experience, comes from just doing it anyway, to be honest. And like
Mhm.
what an ugly, shitty answer. But like
I know, it's not
really.
glamorous. Listen, I know people want to hear like my motivation comes from deep within somewhere. Like it just comes from the bank account, and that's okay. Whatever
Yeah.
your motivation is for doing this job, that's okay. I have a lot of friends and colleagues who are not in this industry, and I like to spend a lot of time being really quiet and listening to them talk about their jobs. It makes me really grateful for mine. So sometimes when I'm feeling really low about it, I got to talk to one of my friends, like in the service industry, and just like, wow, I'm so grateful that my workday looked like putting on a pair of stretch pants and crunching leaves beneath my feet. I am fucking lucky. Thank you for
Yeah.
this life.
Yeah, that perspective and like keeping that in mind when it gets hard or when it gets like tedious. That's so, so important. Especially from, I think the hardest like vertical of sex work I was ever in was cams because it's so time intensive and
Mhm,
labor intensive. I mean, you're taking on everyone's emotions of your fans. You're sometimes an underpaid, underqualified therapist. You're
mhm,
sometimes everyone's best friend, their companion, their fantasy, their everything. And then sometimes no one will fucking talk to you and you're just sitting there. So like for me, cams was my equivalent of like the hardest waitressing job I had. Like on your feet, be entertaining, be high energy, like and just be on. So for
mhm,
me, when I think about like the challenge of it, cams was the easiest one for me to lose sight of how lucky I was because
mm,
I'm like, man, this is getting really hard. Or I've gone a week and had like no earnings come through,
mhm,
and then it just you re remember like what it's like to be out working just regular civilian job or waitressing again, or have to show up for 8 hours and be on your feet and still make nothing in tips. Like at
mhm,
least I'm at home in my room,
mhm.
like that just reframe is so useful because it's easy to lose sight of. It really is.
Yes, it absolutely is. And if you're lucky and you've got some great customers, they can really make you feel grateful and remind you why you do this job too. Always I like to keep a list of my favorite ones, to reach
Yeah.
out to. Like, I just want to let you know sometimes that I really appreciate you and they appreciate that. And that's how
Yeah.
you keep a fan for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any single piece of advice? Like I know you said consistency. I'm wondering if there's maybe something in addition to that for creators that are listening or for new creators that come across this, as a podcast episode a year from now.
I think like a good piece of just overall advice, if I haven't said it before, is to just really be authentic and do the stuff that you want to do. And sometimes that looks like making a whole bunch of different types of content to find what you like to make, and that's totally okay too. But at the end of a year or cycle or season or holiday, it's good to look back and be like, what did I enjoy about this? What did I really like? And how can I do more of that? Because that's what I want to do. And then come up with a plan on how you can double down on that in the next year. And for people that want to do holiday content and might be hearing me talk about like building sets and stuff and like think like that is so out of line with the scope of what I'm doing, keep it really simple. A Christmas set can look like your toes painted red for Christmas. It does not have to be a whole set. It can be a vibe. It can be you looking in the camera and telling a story about the holiday that resonates with you. It does not have to be a whole set and a whole to do. And you can build up to that. One of the great ways to build up to that is to pay attention this year to after holiday sales and go and buy that stuff on 50% off, 75% off, and think about what you're going to make next year with it.
Oh, I love that. That's such a great piece of advice. All right, Bella, I think we're almost at our time. I don't want to overstep and steal more of yours, but I do want you to plug all of your socials and all of your sites so that everyone listening can come find your stuff.
Yes. You can find me as Bella Vendetta on Twitter and Instagram, which are probably the two socials that I utilize the most. All of my content that I make that features me, all of my interviews, podcasts, and all the photographs I take of other models can be found on my personal site, vendettaverse.com. And treasurecams.com is where the webcam studio is. If anyone had any interest in anything I was saying and is like wants to know a little bit more or ask some questions, I always like to tell folks that being in the new model category during the holiday season with a studio that really knows what they're doing can really be a boost to your career in a pretty uncanny way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bella, for taking the time to hang out with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, everyone, and happy Halloween.
Oh, I love this. All right, guys, we're going to start to wrap up this space. As many of you guys have probably seen, we have begun putting out a bunch of new content over on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't already subscribed to us on YouTube, please do so at youtube.com/SWCEO and make sure you have notifications on for all of our new stuff. If you've somehow missed out that we have launched this product called GPTs, it is our uncensored NSFW AI chat tool tailored specifically for adult creators. So whether you're looking for NSFW content ideas for OnlyFans, or help captioning a PPV for a fetish clip, or crafting a viral tweet, or just replying to a fan because you're uninspired on what to say back, writing a video script, just the possibilities are endless. So please consider trying it. It is free. You can even personalize GPTs with your own style, content niche, and favorite emojis to make it truly yours. Just visit gpts.ai, that's gptease.ai. Please send us your feedback. We want to keep making this tool better and better for you, and I know you're going to love it if you just give it a try. If you are already using GPTs, but you're looking for more written scripts, PDF downloads, stuff like that, you can check that out over on our shop, sexworkceo.com/shop. And beyond anything else we've talked about today, like, please consider joining our closed community for adult creators. So we've launched this closed community called CEO Society. It is a completely drama-free and completely free space for creators to get in touch with each other, share strategies, tips, tools, stories, just rant, all of it. Like, we've lost stripper web, we've lost some of our cam communities over, the last few years, and it's really important that we have this safe space to connect where we are out of, the eyes of fans, and where we can share insights and all the rest. So you can join us at ceosociety.app or click the pinned tweet at the top of the space to head on over there. Now, last but not least, I want to share something about another project that I'm working on. If you haven't heard, we have the other company, SWR Data, which is basically us being on a mission to survey adult creators like you listening, because we want to hear your feedback about the challenges you face and how the adult industry can better serve your needs. And our goal is to collect your experiences, opinions, and observations about the current state of the adult industry. And then we'll use this data to advocate for necessary changes to make it a better place for us, the creators. Because the reality is just a lot of the people in power don't have that lens, and we're looking to provide them that lens. Beyond that, I want to just thank everyone for listening and emphasize that all of the info we put out here on Sex Work CEO, we do so for free, because we do believe in this idea that the more financially successful creators are, the more resources we will have as a community to do things like lobby Congress, impact policy, organize, and more. So if you found value in the content you heard here today, and I know you did, because Bella was amazing, please, please, please consider sharing so that we can make this journey easier for some of your own creator friends. Our only ask ever is that you retweet and share our stuff so that we can help as many creators as humanly possible. So that's going to bring us to the end of today's space. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Remember, we turn all of these into written blog posts over on sexworkceo.com. So if you ever want to refer back to any of these ideas, concepts, etc., you can do so on our website. So thank you so much for joining me today, CEO Squad, and I'll see you in the next one.
It would be absolutely incredible if you rated this podcast 5 stars and left a little review. We want to get this podcast to as many adult creators as possible, and you taking a second to leave a couple stars and a review really helps us do that. Thanks so much.